All right, and welcome. Why are we here for another transformational Thursday? It's a beautiful day in Vancouver, and we're here to talk about pressure. Why? Because pressure is good for you. I know. Don't hate me just yet. Don't turn it off. It's okay. No pressure, no diamonds. And I'll explain, so don't worry. We have lots in store for you today, but I will explain that in terms of no pressure, no diamonds. Pressure is good. So stay with me and I'll explain. But how are you feeling today? Probably not as I've uplifted you today. You might be under the pressure, under the gun. And the last thing you want to hear is pressure is good. I've been there. I know. But no, hopefully you're having a great week so far. Yes, you might be under stress or pressure. I think no, you're not alone for sure. Certainly been there. I don't think there was a day in recent years without the pressure ongoing. I had a career full of stress and pressure. I was on these high profile, high stakes projects and it felt relentless. And you might be there as well in terms of you might not necessarily have those high stakes projects, but it's still you if you're doing the work of others. I've heard some people are doing the work of 3 people. And these days it's just everything coming at you from everywhere. And no, yes, you understand pressure is good sometimes, but it doesn't feel like it in the moment for sure. So no, let's take a look at the stats here. For the UK, these are UK stats, but they are representative of the US, Canada, other Western countries. You're not alone if you're in one of these stats. I certainly was. Over 90% have reported being extremely stressed. So 1 in 9 people are experiencing extreme stress, not just stress, but to extreme levels, unprecedented levels. And then at least 25%, so at least over 20% are taking time off due to work. It's higher in the younger generations. So that's Gen Z or Gen Z. Certainly, it's up to even farther. So it's something to be considered because it's certainly something that's impacting people's mental health. It's really the stress and pressure, and that can also create anxiety. And there's a bit of a loop there. So this cycle, we've talked about it in other live streams, and it's that loop between anxiety and stress. So even older generations admit that there's more pressure these days than the past. And in our Tuesday live stream, I shared with you an example just from my career. And that example was the audit files. So it related to the amount of work, the amount of regulations that are required are just more than they were in the past. So the example was when I started my career nearly 20 years ago, a simple file, a simple client, it had maybe 20 procedures to do. And this these days it's over 300, closer to 400 procedures. So it's just astronomical, the amount of work that's exploded. And the solution is not just AI, right? It's not just the emerging technology. We've got to actually be able to address this. So for all of these projects, we have the same staffing as we did 20 years ago when we were doing just 20 procedures. So all of the projects seem understaffed all the time. And so it's not like other people can share staff with you and things like that. So, been there, the pressure is real, and the situation is absolutely real. So if you're in these types of situations, I do appreciate that. And there are many different triggers, right? So I think we spoke about some of these on Tuesday's session. The pressure can be from the overwhelming workload, right? And then also, of course, the constant change. So we this right now, the technology movement in itself, and not just technology movement. There's political situations which are then creating problems for global companies that they have to then shift on a daily basis, and then also just new regulations, right? With the environment, with technology, new regulations are coming in, which are impacting our jobs. And then, of course, the unrealistic timelines and deadlines, because all this adds up to being just unrealistic. And so it's certainly something that, if you're feeling this, you're not alone. My solution was to work the relentless hours in the always on culture, never getting a chance to switch off. And leadership, what I found, at least during my career, is that they weren't filtering their stresses as much as, say in the past, perhaps, because it's just overwhelming for everyone. They're just passing on, expecting you to absorb and solve their problems. So there's so many triggers in the world today, in your environment today. So why am I saying it's good for you? And why is it that diamonds are created under pressure? Well, it's really down to expanding your life. So it enhances your communication skills and boundaries. It really tests your boundaries. Are you going to absorb everything that comes your way? Or actually, do you have the art of articulating a boundary to stop absorbing the pressure? It also interrupts the pattern. So on a daily basis, you get into a pattern, or at least I did, of routine, right? And when you're in a routine, your mind doesn't, is not as active, and you're not necessarily stimulated. And then this sort of pressure, as long as it's not relentless, as long as it's not consistent, it can spike the activity in your brain. It can help open up different ways of thinking, change what's normal for you. And so there's certainly, if it's certain times, not constant pressure, it can create those, creative moments, problem-solving skills. So it's really. So can I share a story with you? All right. So I was sitting in a boardroom, or actually I was sitting in an audit room at the client office tower. The assistant controller ran in and looked around. Marianne, we need you urgently upstairs. I went into the lift and the door opened and I entered a room that was so large. It took years of experience and saying I would come back to them ASAP with a partner confirmation that day. Stress can hit us at unexpected times. I was not expecting to be brought into a boardroom full of 20 odd people and having decisions being made as to whether or not the company could survive. An unheard of experience so early in my career. Not necessarily at the office if you're a woman, but certainly at home you can do this. Splash a bit of cold water. It interrupts the panic response. It lowers the heart rate. It helps you think clearly. And then the shoulder drop. We did a bit of an example in this session, but that is also a help that you can sort of do at your desk in the office without people really noticing. And then there's the shifting of the mind. As part of this recap, we went through the sensory grounding exercises. So that's the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And you name 5 things that you can see, 4 things that you can smell, that type of thing. And then there's the brain dump. So taking a piece of paper and just writing everything down. It sort of just clears the mind. You stop thinking about everything that's running behind scenes and you get it down on paper and it helps you organize. And then there's also the mental pause, just thinking of a happy place for 30 seconds. It can reframe your mindset, your perspective, and get you back into a positive can-do attitude. Then we concluded on the buffer with boundaries, giving yourself an hour or the next day or the next week to get back to people, checking your capacity, doing one part of a task, but not everything, just giving yourself a bit of buffer in order to be able to think. Because when someone comes at you unexpectedly, sometimes you freeze, or at least I do. On occasion, I might freeze. Or if everything's coming at me at once, it can be overwhelming. And you've got that overwhelm paralysis, not even knowing where to start. The buffer with boundaries just gives you a bit of space. But don't underestimate the time, because sometimes you just need a bit longer in order to be able to do it. So did you try any of these? And how do they work? Did you feel an instant relief? I know that if I try some of these, it depends on the day as to what works, but they can really make a difference in the moment. But they're not the entire solution. Sustainable solutions are also key. So that is what we're talking about today, the transformational habits that reduce the stress triggers. And these include the perspective, so the shared perspective, the shrinking of your problems, sounds great, doesn't it? And the boundaries communication. So we spoke about boundaries at first, but those were very temporary boundaries. So how do you actually create solid boundaries that are really going to help you on a sustainable basis? So first, perspective. I was faced with understaffed projects, unrealistic timelines, and partners. They just wanted everything from me. Their expectations wouldn't shift. They said that they would get staff, and then the staff that they delivered were underqualified or underexperienced. I was needing say a manager level, and they gave me a first year. So they thought okay, well, you've got a body, so you're fine. And it just wasn't the case. So I felt unsupported. Really, it was just sort of a token gesture rather than true support. And so I'd work the extra hours to get things done. Have you ever worked the extra hours just to get things done because you've got an understaffed project or an unrealistic timeline? Because I've got plenty of examples of when I've done that, but it's not a healthy thing to do. And it's a hard lesson that I learned. It wasn't what drove me to burnout, but it certainly did contribute because I put in all sorts of years and then it was just exasperation at the end that got me. So giving up my personal time with no additional compensation as well. It was basically just volunteering for the company. So there's no, if we're actually thinking about it logically, even it doesn't make sense. And yes, here and there, an occasion, it might happen. But if staff for the other two parts, that's not for me to take on. Those two parts just don't get done. So it's a matter of putting the problem on the table, not absorbing it. And that's really hard to do when you feel like you're going to lose your job, you feel like you're not going to get the promotion. And we'll talk about that in our boundary section later. And so it's really just important to take this new perspective. And we've got here the shared perspective. So just as recap, shared problems or system issues are not yours to carry. This moves you from an immersed to an observer mode. Do you see the power in this? The next is shrinking the task or the problem. So if you break the task down to its components, and I did this well. So we talked about in terms of the perspective. Previously, I would share, have it as a shared issue, but I would still absorb it. So where my problem lay was actually within the boundary communication. I also did well here, but everyone has their strengths and areas where they could do better at. But what worked well for me is to be able to break down the task. So if you have an overwhelming task, everything's coming at you at once, get it down on paper, get it onto your computer, and basically just break it down into steps. And ideally it's 10%. But it could be more or less depending on the size of the project. And so if you don't have to see the entire staircase. So one of the challenges that we can have with the overwhelming side of things is that it just feels so overwhelming. You don't have enough information. There's so much certainty. You just don't even know where to start. If you write it down and just look, okay, well, do I know what the next step is? And all you need to know is the next step, because that will build momentum, that will build clarity, and it's really just focusing on the next step. It will reduce the overwhelm, paralysis, and it will also just keep you moving and build your confidence through clarity. So shrinking of the problems certainly does help reduce that overwhelm and helps reduce the pressure that you have on yourself, the stress from just everything coming at you at once, from an overwhelming project where you might only know the next step, but not the next 2 steps, for instance. That's okay. So shrink the tasks into bite-sized steps. Focus on the first step. Does this make sense? And the last one here is the boundaries. So for me, this was the area where I probably needed the most improvement, and it related to the boundary communication, because communication of boundaries is vital for your well-being. And managing pressure, it is also very key. So the unhealthy way of managing pressure is to have none. No boundaries, and absorbing the load. And I certainly did that. I worked the 20+ hour days, everything like that. I absorbed so much pressure, so much stress, and it's probably taken a toll on me from a health perspective. It certainly did from a mental health perspective, because it ended up with burnout. So for you to avoid burnout, boundary communication is something to master. And yes, I do speak from an experience. So let's talk about it. First, the emotional load. So absorbing other people's urgencies, ruminating over conversations. This emotional load, in terms of that shared problem perspective, this is going to help you do that. So you can recognize the other person's emotions. You can recognize the other person's urgency with their particular task, but you don't have to absorb it. It's a shared problem. It's their emotion. You don't have to take it on. And so recognizing that and practicing that mindset and perspective is something that will go far. Because there's a lot of people that are stressed out there. They're one email, one ping away from snapping, and you don't need to take it on. You don't need to carry that. The next one is mental load. So for boundary communication, it is time and workload boundaries. So we go over this quite a bit within our live streams and our material, is because it's so important. It protects your well-being, and it's something that I know I've struggled with. About 60% of us struggle with boundary communication. So if that's you as well, you're not alone. But if that's you, just be aware that it increases the risk of burnout by 40%. So I hit burnout. I was included in those stats. So to avoid burnout, look at our other material with regards to boundary communication, especially our clarity under pressure series. That helps you with example phrases to use and an approach to use. And that approach, I'll talk about it right here, but you can dive into more of it in the clarity under pressure, and you can also do the simulations, the AI simulations to practice. So the approach for maintaining relationships while still upholding your boundaries. First, you use the acknowledge. So it's a AAA approach. And the first is acknowledge. So you acknowledge the importance of the project, of the task, and you acknowledge the urgency of it. And then you also appreciate the individual for approaching you with that opportunity. So the acknowledgement notes, it sort of makes the person feel not devalued, right? Not dismissed, pushed aside, which can happen if you don't have that acknowledgement. The appreciation goes more to the individual. And that is, it's to help you not, I suppose that individual going to other people for future opportunities, right? You're appreciating them coming to you. as either an expert or to give you a chance to do this new project. I just appreciate that, the fact that they've come to you with that. And then the last one is alternatives. So alternative timing, alternative scope, and those are certain areas where no trade-offs. Well, what can I deprioritize to take this on, for instance? Or I can't help with that today, but I've got capacity tomorrow and I can start tomorrow. So having those sorts of phrases at hand can really help you because it can depend on the situation as to what phrase you use. But just remember, you have flexibility with regards to timing and scope in order to create those trade-offs. So certainly try that. That's the AAA approach: the acknowledge, the appreciate, and the alternatives. So you can learn more about that in the Clarity Under Pressure series. And we've been talking about that on other live streams as well. And so for boundary communication, we have, it's really important to protect your mental and emotional well-being, and it can be done while maintaining a good relationship. I know that sounds counterintuitive because I certainly felt that companies wanted yes people, but the yes people weren't necessarily the ones that got ahead, and that's a bit surprising to hear. But if you actually observe who gets ahead, it can be the ones that actually create those boundaries, because then that gives them the space to deliver outstanding performance, right? It's not necessarily the one that does the most, because that was me, and I know that people got ahead of me, right? I felt used, basically, because I did all this work, but then others got ahead. So what happened, right? Being strategic, I did realize that I did not invest my time in what actually moves the needle. But the key thing there is that I didn't invest the time. So don't make my mistake. Invest in the soft skills. That is what gets you ahead in the corporate world. And corporate world is all about relationships, because it's those relationships that get you up the ladder. The relationships with leadership, the relationships with your boss. And so it's important to have those phrases for boundary communication. Boundaries are important, but how you frame it is also important. Recognizing the importance of tasks to the other individual, recognizing the interest of the other individual, what's important to them, what do they value, and framing your response to address that is really important, and that will get you ahead. So this is all discussed in our Clarity Under Pressure series. And why is it great? It goes through all of this to move from just surviving the workday to truly thriving clarity under pressure. And it will help you improve your communication, your boundaries, and your confidence in expressing your needs, because that is important to maintaining your well-being and managing the pressure, reducing the pressure even. So there's 5 modules in Clarity Under Pressure. We've got first, communication influence. We start with the foundation for what's actually going to take you forward, because this is what takes you from where you are to where you want to go. We then talk about emotional intelligence, because in order to influence, you need to understand the emotions. Decisions are based on emotions. So what this covers off is the self-awareness, but it's also regulating emotions when you're under pressure. If you've ever gotten irritable or anything like that, this module is for you. And then it's also the understanding the emotions and the emotional shifts in others. It's important to be able to read the room in corporate, understand what your boss is sort of thinking there or feeling based on what you said, and being able to respond to that. So that is what's covered off in that module. And then we've got identity and resilience, because this pressure, this stress, you almost become a shell, someone that you're not truly aligned to. And so this is about rapid recovery and a grounded presence. How do you stay strong, respected, but also protect your well-being? So this module is for you if that's something that you want to look into. And then we go into what's actually going to give you a competitive advantage, and that is focus with intention. So focus with intention. This world is full of distractions. I certainly know that we've got pings on our phone, we've got emails coming through, we've got people coming to our desk. There's distractions from all sides. And so how do you actually truly focus? Well, it turns out we only have 5 hours of true focus each day and only 2 of actual deep focus. So are you using those effectively? If not, this module's for you. And then lastly, it's the decisions with uncertainty. So this is where, if you're worried about taking the right path, not knowing how to make the first step, and you just don't know, this will give you that direction. This will give you the guidance you need in order to make the first step. So isn't this powerful? This is absolutely amazing. It's basically science-backed, but also has an overlay of lived experience. That lived experience is so key because you can get all the theory you want, but what's it actually like in practice? So where do you want to be a year from now? I know we've gone over it, but this is really important because we're 8 months into 2026, which is almost like about 2/3 of the year has gone. If you live 100 years, just don't live the same year 100 times. How are you making 2026 different? Because right now, 8 months in, is it looking exactly like 2025 in terms of the results, in terms of how you're feeling? If it is, change it. This is your day. This is your day to actually do something that's going to transform your life. And if you delay investing in yourself today, you'll most likely do the same tomorrow and the next day, because that's what we do. And then you'll lose out on the results, the promotion, the work-life balance, the relationships, and the joyful, fulfilling life you want. So invest in yourself. Invest in yourself if you expect others to do the same. By far, the best investment you can make is in yourself. And if you invest in yourself, nobody can take that away from you. That is from Warren Buffett, one of the most successful finance individuals in the world. He's done business with many different people, and he's made a buck or two. So take advantage of this limited time live stream exclusive discount of 40% on Clarity and Pressure. This is going to take you from just surviving the workday to truly thriving. And pressure is not something to run away from. It's not something to shy away from even. It's about having strategies and support to best navigate it in a healthy way. As Kobe Bryant once said, it is everything negative, pressure, challenges. It's an opportunity for me to rise. And that's a great attitude to have. Look at it as an opportunity to rise, to reach your true potential, to be a better you. Is it going to build a skill set for you? This pressure is certainly able to do that, but you just have to recognize that. So recognizing the positives of each situation that brings you the pressure will help relieve actually the stress that comes along with that pressure. Pressure is good. Chronic stress, not so much, but pressure is good. Pressure makes diamonds. Control your destiny or someone else will. Invest in yourself today. The choice is yours. Thank you for joining this live stream. Do sign up for our school community for more insights, and do take advantage of the Clarity Under Pressure discount. This is an exclusive discount for the live streams, and it's a limited time only. It's gone next week, so this is one of your last chances. Invest in yourself today. Don't have the same day you had yesterday. This is the day you make a change. Stay tuned for our next live stream, which is on Tuesday. Have a great day, and it's a tremendous transformational Thursday. You're almost at the end of the week. Do something today for you, to invest in you. Reach your true potential, your vision, what you want to do with your life. This is your chance to do just one step, just one thing. Take advantage of that Clarity discount. The discount code is CLARITY, all caps. So it's clarity, and it's all caps. Enter that in and you'll get that discount. So do something for you today. Have a great day, and hope it's a wonderful sunny day for you.